Hi, welcome back to Mysteries Channel. I'm still sick, so bear with me because I am super stuffy and yeah, there's that. Today's video is kind of going to be like this weird circle. It's kind of like what happens most of the time when I'm researching stuff. I make weird connections in my brain. I try to piece it together in some kind of cohesive thought, and then I try to back it up with stuff that I find. And today, it happened, but in a roundabout way, but not the connection that I was initially making. So here you go. Have you heard of Kennewick Man? I'd heard of him years and years ago, many years ago, and I remember it being a controversial subject because the Native Americans in the area where he was found wanted him returned because they were like, he's obviously an ancient man. He's one of us. He's ours. But the archaeologist that found him was like, he doesn't appear to have the same cranial structure that typical Native Americans that have been found would have. So there ended up being this huge lawsuit. So let me go over everything. In the summer of 1996, two college students in Kennewick, Washington, stumbled upon a skull while wading in the shallows along the Columbia River. Columbia River is in Washington State. They called the cops, obviously. The police brought in Benton County coroners, and Floyd Johnson was puzzled by the skull. He, in turn, contacted James Chatters, a local archaeologist. Chatters and the coroner returned to the site and plucked an almost entire skeleton out of the mud and sand. They carried the bones back to Chatters' lab and spread them out on a table. The skull, clearly old, did not look Native American. At first glance, Chatters thought it might belong to an early pioneer or trapper. He thought it was Caucasian, obviously. But the teeth were cavity-free, signaling a low diet in sugar and starch and worn down to the roots, a combination of characteristics of prehistoric teeth. Chatters then noted something embedded in the hip bone. It proved to be a stone spear point, which seemed to clinch the remains were prehistoric indeed. This is Kennewick Man, one of the oldest dating skeletons ever found in the Americas. He's been an object of deep fascination from the moment he was discovered, and he is controversial as well. His remains were subject to a court case that lasted 9 years between the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, scientists, and Native American tribes who claimed ownership of him. Under NAGPRA, the tribes had the right to rebury the remains of Kennewick Man and to refuse scientific study on the man they referred to as the Ancient One. NAGPRA is the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. So the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which oversaw the land where the remains found, initially agreed with the request of the tribes. Before the transfer could be made, Owsley, along with 7 other anthropologists, including Smithsonian colleague Dennis Strafford, filed a lawsuit asserting the scientific right to study the skeleton. An interesting account I found while researching through all the Native American stuff I was looking for in the last video, well, the last couple of videos, because I'm fascinated by it, stuff that you just typically barely at all gloss over in school here. Unless you're actually in Native American studies, you're not going to learn much about any of their past. So while trying to find connections with some past videos, I came across this book called The Skull Wars. It's by David Hurst Thomas. And when I was looking at this book, I came across a passage in it, and it completely reminded me of Kennewick Man. Only the part that I'd learned about years prior, that he might have been a Caucasian, but he was ancient, 9,000. So, in this book, he talks about a 7,400-year-old oral story, a tradition passed down from father to son in the Native American tribes in that area. The story came across to 2 American soldiers in the 1800s, and they actually wrote it down. The chief that told them the tradition, the oral tradition, is Chief Lalek, and he begins the Klamath story like this. A long time ago, so long that you cannot count, the white man ran wild in the woods, and my people lived in rock-built houses. In that time long ago, before the stars fell, the spirit of earth and sky, the spirits often came and talked to my people. Lalek then described the spirits living inside Mount Mazama and the sister mountain, Mount Shasta. 2 massive peaks had openings that led to a lower world through which the spirits could pass. The chief of the below world loved a Klamath chief's daughter, Loha, and demanded that she marry him. When his amorous overture was rebuked, the result did not sit well with the spirit, who threatened total destruction of the people as revenge. Raging and thundering, the story went. He rushed up through the opening and stood up on top of his mountain, terrorizing the people below. At this point, the spirit of Mount Shasta intervened as a cloud appeared over the peak of Shasta, and the two mountains engaged in a horrible combat. Red-hot rocks as large as hills hurled through the skies. Burning ashes fell like rain. The chief of the below world, Mazama, spewed fire from his mouth. Like an ocean of flame, it devoured the forest on the mountain and in the valleys. On and on, the curse of the fire rained and swept until it reached the homes of the people. Fleeing in terror before it, the people found refuge in the waters of the Klamath Lake. The Klamaths then decided that someone should be sacrificed to calm the chaos. 2 medicine men climbed Mount Mazama and jumped into the caldera. The mountain shook. This time, the chief of the below world was driven into his home, and the top of the mountain fell upon him. When the morning sun rose, the high mountain was gone, and for many years rain fell in torrents and filled the great hole that was made where the mountain fell. The chief then ended his story. Now you understand why my people never visit the lake. Down through the ages we have this story, from father to son has come this warning. Look not upon that place, for it means death or everlasting sorrow. So there are 2 parallels that I want to emphasize here. The pre-1865 Klamath account recorded decades before the first scientists explored Crater Lake, and the modern geological explanation, which dates only to the 1920s. In both, Mount Mazama was destroyed in a catastrophic explosion, characterized by superheated avalanches, a massive cloud of volcanic dust, and the dramatic collapse of the peak into the belly of the mountain, and the formation of a new deep water lake atop the truncated mountain. And then let's not forget Kennewick Man, the man I brought up just before this. Kennewick Man's skull was analyzed by archaeologists, and they kept saying, look like other Native American skulls. Maybe Kennewick Man had a Caucasian appearance, but like I said before, I go off on these things and I'm trying to prove some weird theory I have, and this one completely disproven. Although the story that's brought up completely mirrors what actually happened. A mountain explodes, throws out hills of debris all over the land, an ash cloud and fiery inferno ensues, and then it topples into itself, completely almost eating itself into the land, causing a climate change in the area, forming a massive lake. I mean, their story kind of does tell you that, just in a different fashion, right? So what I take from all of this is that we shouldn't rush to discount the Native stories that are told. We might not understand the fashion in which they are telling the story, but it almost, especially, it seems like the older the story is, the closer you get to a truth that is there. The Kennewick Man part, I thought maybe because he looked Caucasian, it was part of this story. I'm wrong, because genetic tests were run on Kennewick Man. And guess what? He is indeed Native American. In 2015, it was made public that scientists at the University of Copenhagen in Denmark determined through DNA from 8,500-year-old bones that Kennewick Man is in fact related to Native Americans, including the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation, from the region which his bones were found. The international team of scientists had communicated the finding to the Army Corps of Engineers in 2013, then made their findings public in 2015, and finally, his remains were returned to his people who had been fighting for it since 1996. Crazy story all the way around. Although I have to say this, I completely understand the natives in this situation, why they would want their men back. They want to give them the burial in a fashion that is their custom. But at the same time, how lucky are we that we got to test all of that stuff and find out more about the area through him. So anyway, most of my videos, most of the stuff that I researched never makes it into video because I completely debunk it in the middle of it. And I'm like, damn, there goes that theory out the window. But this one I thought I would share because, well, why not? Why not share some of the times, some of the many, many times that I'm wrong, I guess. Anyway, just thought I would share that with you. If you liked what you watched, please subscribe. Share comments down below. I am especially interested if you guys in your area have any interesting Native American folklore, mythology, or stories passed down that you want to talk about. Throw them in the comments section below. Anyway, thanks and have yourself a great day.